In 1993, I was 8 years old. I already knew the name Tim Burton, and I was already interested in anything he would make. An interest that I still hold 31 years later. I gathered together my own money and bought a VHS copy of The Nightmare Before Christmas that was played so often the tape started to wear in places. Nightmare follows Jack Skellington, voiced by Chris Sarandon, and the singing was done by Danny Elfman himself, but we'll get to him more in a bit. The Pumpkin King of Halloween Town. If the name isn't descriptive enough, Halloween Town exists purely for the love and celebration of the Halloween holiday. The inhabitants are all Halloween themed, and the whole aesthetic of the world is, of course, Halloween. The movie opens up on a massive celebration of the holiday that by all accounts is a great success. Everyone is thrilled with how it turns out, except for Jack himself. He's bored of the same old routine, bored of waiting an entire year to do that same routine again. He knows he needs a change, but he isn't sure what change he's looking for. Wandering in the woods by himself, a depressed Jack finds a ring of doors. Each door leads to a new holiday-themed world. He chooses the Christmas door and enters Christmas Town. He finds the vibrancy and celebratory spirit refreshing. He decides this polar opposite to his own world is the change he's been looking for. He returns to Halloween Town and decides that the citizens need to be introduced to the holiday he just discovered. As Jack tries to sell the citizens on this new holiday, they can't grasp the concepts at all. They're born of Halloween. They are meant to be creepy and scary, not jolly and friendly. Their misunderstanding and reluctance doesn't slow Jack's enthusiasm. Jack sees the quickest way of introducing the new holiday is to take the role of Santa Claus for himself, a move that shows some of Jack's inherent nature despite his intentions. With his new endeavor in full swing, the only resident who still wants to voice her doubts is a ragdoll named Sally, voiced by the amazing Catherine O'Hara. She tries to have him see the potential that things could turn out horribly. Jack, of course, steamrolls ahead and disregards her warnings. With the help of some iconic youngsters of Halloween Town, Locke, Shock, and Barrel, voiced by Paul Reubens, O'Hara, and Elfman respectively, they decide to kidnap Santa Claus so Jack can take his place. Now, the kidnapping is pretty horrible, but Jack just doesn't see it. He tells Santa he's giving him the year off, as if he's doing him a favor by kidnapping him. He then instructs these kids to take care of Santa. Being unaware of his own nature and the nature of his fellow Halloween Town residents, Jack thinks things are handled and handled well. Instead of making Santa feel safe and comfortable, the kids take him to Oogie Boogie, voiced by Ken Page, a living sack of bugs that is cruel to his core. Jack goes off to deliver presents with his homemade Santa outfit and a sleigh pulled by skeletal creatures and a ghost dog with a glowing nose. The gifts are the stuff of nightmares, and Halloween influence start tainting everyone's Christmas. Instead of spreading Christmas cheer, Jack is spreading sheer terror. The military is called in to shoot down the mysterious figure who is disturbing the peace and spreading so much terror amongst the world. After being shot down, Jack wakes up in a graveyard. His awakening is literal and figurative. He's disheartened by failing at this new endeavor, but he has a realization in this moment. He was never supposed to be Santa Claus. He's reinvigorated on being the Pumpkin King. He sees that his meddling has made a mess of everything and is determined to set it right. The big climax of the movie is an exciting action sequence with dynamic lighting and a ton of atmosphere. Jack ends up winning the day by unraveling Oogie Boogie's sack that makes up his body and has the massive disgusting bugs that is actually made of scatter everywhere. The now freed Santa forgives Jack for his overstepping. He gets busy fixing Christmas for the world and even spreads a little bit of Christmas cheer to Halloween Town to show that all is forgiven and give Jack a little taste of the new magic he'd been missing. Jack reflects on his journey with Sally at his side. The two embrace as they share romantic feelings for each other, and Jack is at peace with who he is. The first spark of the idea that would become this bizarrely unique movie in Burton's mind came to him in the early 1980s. He was working as an animator for the Disney company at the time. He loved the idea of combining the dark, spooky atmosphere of Halloween with the bright and cheery tones of Christmas. The earliest treatment of the story was actually a poem by the same name, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Along with the desire to mix the tones, Burton wanted to do his own version of the Rankin and Bass Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer special and the more classically animated How the Grinch Stole Christmas. To find the look of the movie, Burton worked with illustrator Rick Heinrichs to develop concept art that would be recreated in sculptures and define the iconic look of the movie. When this idea was more solid and beginning to take shape, Burton pitched it to Disney, the top name in animation. At this time, Disney was deeply set in their ways of traditional animation with light-hearted, family-friendly tones. The dark gothic look Burton was going for and the obviously unproven concept was a little too risky for Disney, and they turned it down. Burton would move on with other projects like Beetlejuice and the 1989 Batman movie. These movies solidified his unique vision for things and were commercial hits that allowed him more creative freedom in future projects. Nightmare was never far from the front of his mind, though. Some years later, with some big hits now on his resume, Burton pitched to Disney again, and this time, they accepted. They didn't want to make the movie under the Disney banner, though. They agreed to make it under the subsidiary of Touchstone Pictures. They also agreed to give Burton a long enough leash that he could realize his creative vision on such a unique movie. I don't think this movie works out if it's done with design by committee. Burton's successful career got this passion project greenlit, but it also meant he was busy with other things. He brought in director Henry Selick, who also had a background in animation, and more specifically in stop-motion animation. The stop-motion process took years of painstaking work from a huge team of animators. The details were not simplified to speed the process up, and every last thing had to be perfect in the frame. Even the world around the characters was done in stop-motion, as it was interactive and generally had a life all its own. Reports indicate that over 227 puppets were created for the characters, and Jack alone, as the lead, needed 400 heads to capture all of his expressions. The entire animation process took roughly 3 years. That doesn't count editing, that's just shooting. I'm not sure if Nightmare was always envisioned as a musical, but that is the way it turned out. There are few composers in Hollywood who could make something like this actually work, and Danny Elfman was an incredible choice for the project. Elfman composed the songs, wrote the lyrics, and even performed the singing voice of Jack, who had the most work to do by far. The musical numbers aren't the only work Elfman did. The entire score and ambiance, the tones of the entire movie were handled by this legendary composer. Shockingly, in '93, the movie debuted to mixed response from critics. It found its audience and is considered a cult classic, though I think it's a bigger success than most of the movies that are considered cult. As I do these cult classic retrospectives, it seems like every movie that wasn't a blockbuster from day one is a cult classic. The unique blend of holidays and the incredible animation give the movie an enduring legacy that people still appreciate to this day. It's just as popular now as it ever was, with a steady stream of new merchandise, re-releases, and fan-held events popping up regularly. This is a holiday movie that can be enjoyed for months rather than weeks out of the year, as it bridges the end of October and the end of December. A genius move that no other movie has been able to replicate. What are your thoughts on Nightmare Before Christmas? When did you discover this masterpiece? Let us know in the comments, and check out this playlist next for more retrospectives.